Hello there, welcome to Architect Interview Question Series from Knowledge Powerhouse. In this series, we are covering many system design questions, architect questions, and like software related things. Our next question is, how does a certificate authority work? CA. So mainly in encryption and cryptography and the internet communication, we use certificates, and then these are managed by certificate authority. Let's understand how a certificate authority works. So certificate authority is generally a company or an organization that can validate the identities of entities in the internet. So whenever we need a certificate, we need to reach out to a certificate authority, and mostly it's like operates over the internet. You don't need to go to any office. It's over the internet through a website. You can reach out and get the certificate created. The entity that needs a certificate can be a website, it can be a company, it can be an email address, or it can be an individual person. So anyone can go and get a certificate for themselves. So what CA does is that they bind the entity to a cryptographic key by issuing an electronic document known as digital certificate. So this digital certificate is a certificate that is issued by the certificate authority, and they maintain that which entity is belonging to this certificate. So this certificate and entity, that mapping is kept with the certificate authority. So the primary use of certificate is authentication. So the credential in certificate is used to validate the identity of the entity to which it is issued. So like if you're on a website and that website wants to make sure that the certificate is valid, then they need to reach out to CA and confirm that, yeah, like this entity is the one who has issued this certificate. Like this certificate belongs to this entity. So they go to the issuer and validate it. So the purpose of certificate is also to secure communication over an insecure network like the internet. So it is used for encryption as well. So using the certificate, you can encrypt this data and you can use a secure communication. And then integrity. The certificate authority also helps in maintaining the integrity of documents that are signed with the certificate so that any third party cannot tamper it during transfer of data. So it protects the users from the man in the middle attack. Basically, if let's say you are trying to communicate securely with abc.com, and abc.com has a secured certificate, and that certificate is valid and it belongs to abc.com, that you can check by reaching out to CA. And in that, like, you don't need to reach out to CA. The browser itself can go to CA and confirm that whenever we are communicating with abc.com, this is the certificate being used and this is actually issued by this certificate authority to abc.com. So that way you are encrypting the data not by some other website, but by the site with which you are communicating. So how it works is that normally the applicant entity will generate a key pair. They will, like on their own machine, they can generate a key pair. In that there'll be one public key and one private key, that is a key pair, asymmetric one. And this is done while creating the certificate signing request. So I mean, they are creating a certificate signing request, so they generate a key pair. Now when they create a certificate signing request, that is more like an encoded text file. In this encoded file you have public key and some other information like domain name, organization name, email address, etc. So that private key still stays with the the same entity, which it's not there in the certificate, it's the public key. And this generation of key pair and CSR is done on the server or the node where the certificate will be installed. So let's say from one node you are trying to encrypt the data. So there you create the key pair and then create a CSR, and from there the certificate will be generated. So the type of information that you include in the CSR, it will vary depending on the validation level that you want from the certificate and what is the intended use of the certificate. And this key, like private key, is kept secure and it is never shared with the CA or any other party. So the applicants, they do not share the private key with anybody. They just share the public key, and that public key is in the certificate. Because and then in that certificate is authorized by the CA. so that any receiver, they can know that, oh, using this public key, I mean, the data can be encrypted or decrypted kind of a thing. So that can happen. And once you generate the CSR, the applicant entity sends the CSR to certificate authority, and certificate authority has mechanism to verify that the information in the CSR is correct or not. So they can validate like this certificate is actually coming from abc.com. abc.com is a real company and they are like, trustworthy. So all these things certificate authority validates, and then only they issue the certificate. So if all the information is correct and successfully verified, then CA will digitally sign the certificate with their own private key. So CA will also put a private key, and then they will send it to the applicant that this is the certificate for you, right? And this private key of CA is different from the private key of the applicant, right? And then like so, but in the end, this whole certificate is like a public key. So during an internet request or interaction, the applicant entity will present the signed certificate to the clients, not to the CA, but to the clients. Let's say there are users of abc.com and they want to send some like sensitive data to abc.com, but they want to encrypt it. So if they have to encrypt it, they need a public key. And that public key is the certificate which abc.com will send it to their users, right? And then the users, how do they know that this public key or this certificate is valid and this is from abc.com, right? To validate it, they go to the CA, to the certificate authority, right? And from there they can check that certificate is valid and belongs to abc.com or not. So that's how this certificate thing works. So once the clients validate, then they can start using the public key and they can confirm that the signed content was signed by the entity in possession of the corresponding private key. And once it is validated, then the communication channel is established. Now, because of this kind of three entities in the picture, like certificate authority and the receiver and sender, this whole system works in a very secure way. And this is the most popular way of communication these days. So I hope you will be using in your project in some form of another, and it will be very helpful for your computer, like your software architecture to become secure. All right, that's all from here on certificate authority. If you have more questions, do post your questions in comment section and we'll be happy to answer for you. Thank you, and do subscribe to the channel if you are interested in knowing more.